Rising Rampage has a lot of skepticism behind it, in thinking that it's a pretty bad set that's coming out in a week from now. But I actually, while I don't believe the set is amazing, I do think there are some things that you don't want to sleep on. So I wanted to make a video here today just to inform the people that maybe heard it wasn't that great and didn't really look into it that much, just to show them everything, maybe a nice, concise, run through of everything that I think matters. So we're not going through every single card, obviously, but I'm going over pretty quick to just make sure everybody knows, what is here, what is even in this set. So without further ado, guys, let's jump right into it. So in this set, we are going to be debuting 4 brand new archetypes, for the most part, pretty much 4 brand new archetypes. We have a bunch of support cards as well for other archetypes, but these are the ones that are brand new. We start with Marincess. This is an anime archetype used by one of the main characters. It is a water Cybers deck that uses Link monsters. It's Cybers, it uses Link monsters. As well as like a weird control strategy that really makes good on kind of just maintaining resources very well. They have a 1-card combo that gets you like a Link 3, and you still end with the same 1 card in hand. So it's like almost like a no-card combo in that sense. So as you can tell, very resource efficient, which is very cool. But they're very cool. They have more support coming in Chaos Impact, but this is a very strong start for them. They're also very high rarity, so do not be surprised if they are pretty expensive. They're very good. They're very good. Then we have Tenny, a new worm-based archetype with a bunch of these awesome dragon worm monsters. They have 5 here in this set. They're an archetype where all of those monsters say if you control a non-effect monster, or if you don't control any effect monsters, I believe is the exact ruling, you can special summon them from your hand once per turn, and then they also have an effect that you can banish them from your hand or graveyard to get another effect. This one specifically lets you, I think, target a card your opponent controls and return it to the hand. There are ones with like protection effects. There's one that like lowers an opponent's monster's attack by 1500 till the end of the turn, which is nice battle phase shenanigans. So they have some pretty nice utility there, a deck I'm certainly interested in. And they also have a couple Link monsters as well, and some powerful, a field spell that lets you draw 2, a Omni Negate trap card, a really nice Search / Foolish Burial card, which is really insane in this deck, and definitely something to keep an eye on, especially since they do have a little more support in Chaos Impact as well. Then we move to Simorghs, a new winged beast archetype. Well, sort of. We already have cards in the TCG that are Simorgh cards, but it wasn't an archetype, and this fully fleshes it out as a legitimate archetype. They're pretty cool. They kind of spam the board a little bit. All their little monsters say if your opponent controls no spell or trap cards in their zones, you can special summon them from your grave once per turn. Which is a nice little, like, getting a bunch of free monsters out on the board. But overall, I don't think they're too good, but they're definitely a fun casual strategy. I love their designs. I gotta say, personally, I just don't expect them to be very good, but just something to keep an eye on. And then the last one is a new archetype, the Dream Mirror archetype, that came out of nowhere pretty much. It's only, I think, 7 new cards. They don't seem very good at all. It's a deck that's like kind of uses that dichotomy of good and evil. There's 2 worlds. You got on different sides of the mirror. And their artwork's pretty cool, but I just think they don't really do enough. They use 2 field spells, but neither of them really do much. So I just think overall it's just kind of a cool archetype out of nowhere. Cool artwork. I'm sure some people will love it, but competitively not too crazy. Then we move to a bunch of support we got for archetypes that already exist. I'm not going to spend too much time on these because, it's just support, and at least I was telling you about the archetypes in the last section, but this one, no need. We get 2 new Dino Wrestler monsters. If you want to go look them up because you're interested, go ahead. They're both more battle phase shenanigans. Neither of them are very good, I don't believe. We get a bunch of Fortune Lady cards, literally like 7 Fortune Lady cards. We get a boss synchro monsters, which is actually decent. We get like 2 spell cards that are actually really good. One like is a tanky, and one is just specials from deck. As well, I think, is a trap card, and I think something else, and another main deck monster. So you get like a 6 or 7 new Fortune Lady cards, is really cool. We get like 6 or 7 Senju cards, which are really fun. I can't wait to see what kind of stuff people can do with Senjus, because I think it's a really cool archetype, really different style they use, and unique deck, but maybe these cards are good, maybe they're not, I don't know. I just want to see if they can do anything. Let's see. Next we have Vic Viper T301. This isn't a specific archetype support card. This is more so specifically though for like Cyber Dragons and ABCs. This is just a monster that says if one of your monsters battles your opponent's monster, you can special summon it from your hand, and it just has a continuous effect where all light machines on your field gain 1200 attack, like just while it's up. So it's making Cyber Dragons huge, it's making some ABC cards huge, just kind of an OTK slash like offensive pushing card for those two decks, but really interesting to keep in mind, see if it's actually playable in there. I'm thinking more so ABCs, but I'm not. I guess it could yeah, I guess it is still pretty good in Cyber Dragon. I don't know, we'll have to see. We do get a random Reptilian support card out of nowhere, literally out of nowhere. It's just one card. It's a decent card for Reptilians, but Reptilians are so far behind. They would need like a whole new overhaul. They would need this card was like a whole new revamp. This card's pretty good, I'm not gonna lie. It's not bad. It's just like one shining star in a pile of poo for that archetype. But yeah. Familiar Possessed slash I guess Charmers. We do get the new Wind Charmer of the Verdant. Pretty cool. I mean, we already know what Hita does. Unfortunately, right now, competitively, this doesn't really do anything because there's no real, not even like wind cards being used. Like Droll's not in super use right now, and there's no wind decks, but definitely it could rise in the future in usage. But for the most part, we get this, and we also get her Familiar, the one that's like one of the monsters for Familiar Possessed that just says if you control a spellcaster, you can special summon it from hand once per turn, and then it has like a float effect when it's destroyed by a card, or effect to like special summon another monster from grave in the archetype, which is cool. It's a nice little bump, but obviously it's not going to make them meta anytime soon. But if you love them, definitely keep an eye on these because we're going to keep getting more cards like that for them. Then we have Witchcrafters, just one card, Witchcrafter Golem Aruru, I believe is its name. It's a pretty interesting card. It protects you from like battle and being targeted from card effects in the archetype, and it's searchable. And it's pretty cool. It's a big monster, just helps like I guess make your boards a little bit stronger, because to break your boards against Witchcrafters, you're probably going to need to do one of those two things: target your monster with effect or an attack, and then this card punishes your opponent for doing that. So keep an eye on this card, not too shabby. I think it actually works in any spellcaster deck as well, which is interesting. There are two more Salomon Great cards in this set as well. I know, Salomon Great's already meta. Why are we getting more support? They did just get pretty significantly hit on the ban list with Gazelle and Circle each going to 1, hurting the consistency. So the only reason I really bring these up with any significance is maybe players will delve into other cards that weren't really being played as much before in hopes to kind of make up for the cards you're missing in those 4, really strong consistency cards to hopefully keep the strategy afloat. This could be one of them. It's going to equip, I think, Specials one from Grave. It's a nice extender if you do get disrupted. Trying to make your plays, being able to extend back into another monster. But nothing crazy, but maybe. Well, who knows? Then we have another World Legacy card here, just one. That's it, but it's a pretty interesting card. So this is a trap card that says generically you can activate one of its 2 effects on activation. The first one just lets you send 1 Link monster your opponent controls to the graveyard. That's non-targeting, non-destruction, which is pretty nice. And also the second one is banish 7, I think, World Legacy cards from grave to add any Cybers card from deck to hand. It's a nice effect, but banishing 7, that's rough for cost. How to even set that up, and is it even worth? Would you rather just be sending something? I don't know, but it's a pretty nice just like non-targeting, non-destruction removal trap against, I don't know, a lot of what Yu-Gi-Oh is nowadays, which is Link monsters. So definitely cool to see there. Then we get Dragunities here. This card could have easily been in the meta section of this list, but I just want to bring it up here because Dragon decks can just abuse this with guard dragon plays and whatnot. This card could be really strong, but specifically it's Dragoonie support. I've seen some stuff on Yu-Gi-Oh Pro, not Yu-Gi-Oh Pro, on YouTube of people testing with Dragunities with this card. It actually is pretty decent with guard dragon stuff, but I don't think it's the most optimal way to run a dragon deck. I mean, I still think Thunder Guard Dragon is probably the best way to go, but still interesting to see and good for Dragoonies. I know they're a really liked archetype. And then the last support card we have here is F.A. Dawn Dragster. This card's not crazy. It is obviously just a straight up monster negate for the archetype, but I don't think the archetype can combo hard enough to really set this card up in a strong fashion. But nonetheless, it is still nice to see. I know FAs, a decent amount of people like FAs. They just were disappointed in how truly terrible they were. But, it's here, it's helpful, and slow and steady, I guess. So now we're going to move to the competitive section, and there's honestly not a lot of really competitive generic cards in this set, but I found 3 that didn't fit into other categories, so that's what we're going over here. We'll start with Gizmek Orochi, the Serpent Snake Slasher, something like that. His name is similar to that. Pretty much he's the second coming of Fairy Tale Snow. That's what you'll hear anybody say. He has a quick effect from hand or grave where you can banish the top 8 cards of your main deck to special him out. It's a 24/50 wall, just really nice to be able to drop him at any point. And then also he has an effect where you can banish 3 cards from your extra deck face down. I think you get to pick those ones though, to target and destroy 1 monster on the field. So he's not crazy, but he is a very nice, even in control decks. If there's a control deck that doesn't care about banishing its main deck stuff too much, like this card could just be a huge help in just like not only maintaining like a strong body on board, but also just removal a little bit and doing it on the fly every turn, which is really cool. So that, as well as the Maju Daiza deck. That's not a super meta deck, but I do think it could be a pretty nice rogue strategy because this card buffs it a lot. It's a pretty nice little buff here. So cool. He's a really cool card. Then we have Get Out. This is a really cool trap card that just lets you target 2 monsters your opponent controls that were summoned from the extra deck and shuffle them back into the deck. Obviously, and it has to be 2. It cannot be up to 2. Your opponent has to control 2. Obviously, the biggest drawback is if you end up in a matchup, you know, Sky Strikers, Guru Control, True Dracos, any of those decks that don't even like use the extra deck that much or only have 1 monster from the extra deck at a time, can't even be activated. But against a lot of the combo decks, this is very strong disruption or just a decent way to even break boards, you know, play into boards and then just, you know, trade a 2 for 1. But it's really strong nonetheless. Do not sleep on this card, and you know, keep an eye on another secret rare. And the last one here, by far the most important card in the set, is Appaloosa, Bow of the Goddess. This is a generic Link 4 that, depending on how many different names were used for its summoning, it will gain 800 attack times that, and then not once per turn. If an opponent's monster effect is activated, you can negate the activation to by lowering her attack by 800. So most of the time you'll see her being made at like 2400, and then you just have 3 monster negates just built into her. There are ways to work around her, but her combined with other like disruption cards can be insane. And I think just one of the biggest things is that we haven't had a really strong generic Link monster that like roguish or any deck that spams the board can go into. Like, you spam the board, but I think so many of these decks, if they didn't have something in their archetype, we're sitting there like, what do I do? Like, how do I even make disruptions right now? This card is a really nice option for those decks to just be able to spam out of turn 1 and just you know, just have multiple, not even just 1, but multiple disruptions right away. So really strong card. Do not sleep on this card. And then we'll move into a bunch of random cards that don't really fit into any of these categories, but I do think there's something you should keep in mind. This is Cap Shell. I believe if he's tributed, you draw 1 card. If he is used as material for, you know, a Synchro Summon, a Link Summon, or whatever summon, you can draw 1 card. Or if he's detached from an Xyz monster as material, you draw 1 card. He's just completely generic and lets you draw cards like that. I just thought that was pretty interesting and actually fairly strong. We might be able to see him come up in something later on, just in a deck that just gains a ton of advantage. We have Beat Rafter, a really nice stun card here. He just negates all monsters in the extra monster zone's effects while he's face up on the field, and if he is destroyed by battle, he special summons another 1 out, so he has longevity. Definitely something to keep in mind for those rogue stun decks for sure. Really powerful card. Next up is Spirit Sculptor. This is a really interesting card as well. He lets you tribute any monster on your side of the field to add another monster from your deck to your hand with the same stat total as that monster. He can tribute himself just to add a 37 base stat total monster to your hand, or he contribute something else. So he's pretty interesting. I don't know what he'd be used in right now, but he definitely could come up in the future, just because he's kind of generic like that. Borreload X-Charge Dragon, I don't expect this to be super great, but it is a 3000 beat stick to say the least, and it does revive Boral monsters from the graveyard, which kind of sounds crazy, just a generic card that can revive Link 4s like that. But maybe it is actually playable in like Rockets and a more pure Rocket version. Who knows, but it is generic, and I don't know, I wouldn't be surprised if we see it get used at some point. Link Mail Archfiend is a really cool Link 4 monster. Its biggest problem is that it needs to be made with a material that is either a like Xyz, Ritual, Fusion, or did I say Synchro, Xyz? Those four, I can't remember. Ritual, Synchro, Fusion, Xyz. Needs to be one of its materials, and you still need 3 other materials outside of that just to make him. He's okay. He has like a solid protection effect, a solid float effect, and he like kind of floodgates all your opponent's monsters to lower their stats. You can go heavy in the battle phase, but I think for the most part, he's too niche unless he comes up specifically in a deck. I don't think we'll really see him being played, but I think he's something to keep in mind. Next up, we have Linkback, an interesting spell card that lets you move a monster in your extra monster, a link monster in your extra monster zone to a zone it points to, and then you can send cards from the top of your deck to the graveyard equal to its link rating. So I thought this was interesting. Maybe this is like a Light Sworn card. If you can just make a link 2, then you can move him, and then also mill 2. It can just be a mill 2 card, which we know can be really strong in that deck. But I don't know. I just thought maybe it'd come up in a certain deck at some point. Maybe just to move the zones. We've seen that in Crusadia plays being really, really important. But who knows? I just thought it was something kind of niche, but could come up. Hypernova Blast is a really interesting draw card where I think if you banish 2 monsters from your hand that cannot be normal summoned, you'd get to draw 2 cards. So nothing crazy, but it lets you cycle through your deck pretty quick, and even though it is like a -1, so whatevs. Then we have a couple of Xyz monsters. We have Kiki Mushi Fucho, a really interesting rank 1. Its generic takes any 2 level 1s, and it says it's unaffected by your opponent's card effects, and once per turn as a quick effect, you can attach both materials to make it indestructible by battle and so that you take no damage, I believe. So really interesting card that literally can just stall you a turn no matter what. Like, he's unbreakable through it other than like kaijus and specific stuff like that, lava golem, sphere mode, stuff like that. Other than that, he's literally like cannot be outed, which I thought was really, really spicy. Maybe we'll see him come up at some point in the future, but I don't know. I like him and I like his design. Then we have Mannequin Cat, another really interesting card. If I remember reading this card correctly, she says you can detach a material or both materials, I don't remember which one, to special summon monster from your opponent's graveyard back to their field. Then she has another effect where once per turn, if your opponent special summons a monster, you can special summon from your deck, hand, or graveyard a monster with the same type or attribute. And I think it might be type and attribute. I think it might have been a typo, because I think that's too generic. Like, could you imagine like a Dark Fiend? You can special summon any Dark or any Fiend from your hand, deck, or graveyard. But she's still pretty cool. I mean, she's a generic rank 2 with 2,000 attack, bringing out straight up like any monster that matches like maybe any random Dark monster your opponent's playing. I don't think any rank 2s are running around nowadays, or should be, but I do think this is an interesting card to keep an eye on. And then lastly, I don't know why this picture was so terrible, I could not find a good one, but this card, Hrazvelger, the Desperate Doom Eagle, is a really cool link 3. It takes 2+ wind monsters specifically. But what he says is if your opponent has no monsters in their graveyard, this card gains 2,400 attack, going to 4,800, and also once per turn it has a quick effect where it can just straight up target and banish 1 monster from your opponent's grave. So he himself is clearing stuff out of your opponent's grave, and eventually if they hit none, he goes up to being a 4,800 beat stick. Very good. Also, that is a very good disruption as a quick effect. We know against like Orcust, we know against everything like Thunder Dragon that can be good, Orcust that can be good, Sally's that can be good, banishing rays from your opponent's grave against Striker can be good. All very good like utility against those decks, and it just gives those wind decks something else to go into. Speedroids, I don't know, Harpies, anything like that gives them another option to kind of, and disruption built into their link package. So that's the last card, guys. That's pretty much it for every card that everything I think that is super relevant in this set. I know this video is still a little long, but I think it's a little more concise and actually is a little more specific than a lot of I don't know what summaries that you'll see about this set, and hopefully this was good. Let me know how I could improve this video, like how I could improve, like maybe the next time I do something like this. Is there stuff, what should I cut out if I want to cut time down? Should I spend less time talking about the random cards, maybe just going through them even quicker, maybe spending less time on the random archetype support, like the one Dragunity card, the one FA card, the one World Legacy card? Are those just a waste of time, or do you think I should have spent this long talking about everything? Let me know your thoughts down below, guys. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you want to see more stuff from me, go ahead and subscribe to the channel, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace.